Good morning, children, and welcome to all of you in online classes. Dear students, today I am going to teach you the first chapter of your Flamingo book, and the name of chapter is The Last Lesson. Dear students, the chapter is first, but the title is The Last Lesson. I will tell you how the name of the chapter is The Last Lesson. Dear students, this particular lesson, The Last Lesson, is written by Alphonse Daudet, one of the French writer. Or Mr. Alphonse Daudet was born on 13th May 1840 at Nimes in France. Or he was famous patriot. Or he has written many novels, many short stories, or he worked as a poet also. Or this writer, well-known writer Alphonse Daudet died on 16th December 1897 at Paris in France. Or he has contributed a lot in the freedom of France. Actually, the students, this particular writer was a great patriot, great nationalist, and he was very much sad and pained at France's defeat in war against Prussia. Or Prussia was at that time, dear student, a big country comprising Germany and Austria. And unfortunately, that France was defeated by Prussia, or two important cities, two important districts, Alsace and Lorraine, passed into the Prussian hands. Or after that, dear students, this writer has written this lesson, or he is very much sad. This lesson is about that. I want to tell you that in this chapter there are two main characters. One is Mr. Hamel, who is a dedicated, devoted, hard-working teacher, as well as he is very strict teacher. Mr. Hamel is a very strict teacher, or he is famous for his ruler. He used to give punishment to the students. He loved discipline. This teacher Hamel worked in particular school, or in that school he worked almost 40 years. Major portion of his life he spent in that school. Or he was teaching French in that school. The next and most important character is Little French, who is actually the narrator of this story, in whose words the story has been narrated. Or his name is Little French. He has also expressing his pain, or his regression, and lastly his respect for the French language after the lecture and after the teaching of Mr. Hamel. So these are the two important characters. One, Mr. Hamel, another little French, who is the narrator of this story. Dear students, actually the story starts that Mr. Little French starts his journey from his home to school, or he was in hurry. He was going to school to attend the classes of Mr. Hamel. Or Mr. Hamel has given homework to him to learn and prepare participle. But this boy, Little French, has not done the homework of Mr. Hamel. Though Mr. Hamel was a strict teacher, and there was a chance in hand of Mr. Little French to go any other place and to not go to school. But this boy, Little French, decided not to go any other place, but to attend the class of Mr. Hamel. Or when he was moving forward, or when he passed the town hall, dear students, at that time, dear students, there was a crowd near bulletin board. There was a huge crowd near bulletin board. Or seeing this crowd, Mr. Little French was very much upset and very much worried. The reason of his worry and the reason of his anxiety, actually he has received many sad and many bad news from this bulletin board in the past. So he was frightened and he was worried once again there could be a bad news and sad news. He wanted to go there, but he avoided to go there because his first aim and objective was to reach school and to attend the class of Mr. Hamel. Or the boy, Mr. Little French, was moving hurriedly. At that time he was interrupted by blacksmith, who was standing with his apprentice, with his assistant. Or that blacksmith interrupted him and he told him not to go in hurry, there was enough time. Actually this man has seen the news of bulletin board, or he was well aware about that news. But when he saw Mr. Little French, he passed this comment that he should not go in hurry, there was enough time. This statement was taken negatively by Mr. Little French, or he was thinking that that blacksmith was making fun of him. So he increased his speed. Or finally he reached to the school. Or when he reached to the school gate, he found that there was a complete silence outside of the school also and inside the school also, at the school gate also. What happened in normal days? Whenever suppose there was a school day, so there was too much commotion and disturbance, too much noise outside of the school and inside the school also. But on that day, dear students, one strange thing was noticed by this Little French, that there was a complete silence. This increased the tension of Mr. Little French. He was thinking that he was late for the school. Because before starting the school, there was too much commotion and disturbance. And on that day, there was a complete silence. So this was signaling that he was late for the school. But anyhow, he reached to the classroom gate, or he found that the children were sitting in the classroom, but he could not dare to enter. Anyhow, he restored courage, and he tried to enter in the class. Or when he opened the gate, he was noticed by strict, dedicated teacher Mr. Hamel, young Hamel. But he was surprised that Mr. Hamel did not treated him negatively, did not punish him with his ruler. On that day, he talked very politely. But as the writer reached late and the class was already started, so he was very much ashamed on that, or he entered in the class, or he reached to his seat. After sitting on his seat, when he looked around in the classroom, he found that there were many people from the town, aged people, old people. They came to attend the class and they were sitting at the back. So this was the first surprising thing. Or second surprising thing he observed, dear students, that Mr. Hamel was in his best suit, or such type of suit he was wearing on special occasions. To seeing all these changes, Mr. Little French was completely surprised. He was not able to understand that why this change was there, or why Mr. Hamel has worn that special dress, and why the many people, old people, they came uptown, they came to attend the class with their books. He could not understand. Or one more surprising thing was why Mr. Hamel was talking politely on that day. This was also the major surprising thing. Anyhow, Mr. Hamel started his lesson. Or on that day, he was teaching with full devotion and full dedication. Dear students, Mr. Hamel was teaching with full devotion and full dedication. And finally, he informed them that it was his last class. He informed the students as well as other people who were sitting at the back, that from next day, from tomorrow, the German teacher will teach them. Because their language, their city was and their country was enslaved by Germans, by Prussia. So German teacher will teach them. After knowing this, Mr. Little French was once again completely shocked. Because in his whole study, in his whole student life, he was not serious about his language, he was not serious about his study. Or first day, it was the first day in the life of Mr. Little French when he was capable to understand each and everything taught by Mr. Hamel. So in 7 years, suppose study, he could not learn 7 words of French. This was the bad luck of Mr. Little French. And on that day he was understanding, or the way of teaching of Mr. Hamel influenced him, impressed him. But unfortunately, it was the last class and last lecture of Mr. Little French, Mr. Hamel. And finally, dear students, Mr. Hamel taught many things. He taught participle also, he taught grammar also, he taught other subjects also. Or on that day, whatever he was teaching, that was easily understood by Mr. Little French. This was the surprising thing. Or finally he asked question to Mr. Little French regarding participle. But unfortunately, dear students, this Little French could not give answer. He started, but as he has not prepared, so he could not reply. But on that day, Mr. Hamel, strict teacher, did not give any punishment to him. He did not give any punishment. Even he talked politely. He said that for his position, his parents were first responsible, because they were not interested to send Mr. Little French to school and to study. They wanted, parents of Little French wanted to send him to work in factory to earn money. So parents were first responsible for his position, for his situation. Or secondly, Mr. Little French blamed himself also. Instead of, whenever he was calling the students in holidays, on Sundays, so instead of teaching them, he used to send them away and engaging them in other work and going for catching fishes. So he himself was responsible. Mr. Hamel thought that he was also responsible. Parents were responsible for the education of, for the situation of Mr. Little French, and Mr. Hamel was also responsible. This statement was given by Mr. Hamel. Or on that day, dear students, he was teaching with full devotion and he wanted to scan each and everything of that school. He wanted to scan. He wanted to, suppose, remembering about his 40 years services, that how he spent in that school. And he was remembering about the French language. Or finally, dear students, this man, Mr. Hamel, gave some copies to the students. Or in that, on front page, dear student, on cover page, France Elsock was written in each copy that was given to the students. Or he gave some writing of work also to them. On that day, dear students, when the students were writing, there was a complete silence. Only the sound of writing, their pen was coming out. Or this teacher, Mr. Hamel, gave everything, whatever he could do to his students. Or finally, he became serious. He became emotional. And he told them that their language, their French language is their weapon. At the time of freedom, this language will work as a weapon. So Mr. Hamel given advice to them, they should not forget their language. Or after teaching all this, finally Mr. Hamel became serious, or he written on the board, long live French and long live Elsock. Seeing this, writing this on the board, he instructed the students, now class is over. So this is all about this lesson, the last lesson. That's all, children. You will write the summary of this chapter in 100 to 120 words. And I will teach you line by line tomorrow. That's all. Thank you.